Hey, what's up, men? It's Nyland from SurrenderedStrength.com, and welcome back to another episode of the Surrendered Strength Radio. I'm going to be honest, I had been working on a podcast, an interview that I did a week ago, and as I was basically done with all the editing, and I don't know what happened, but I lost all the editing and everything. So this is tonight's topic is one that I have been focusing on the last couple days. I was planning on getting it out next week, but God has other plans, so we're going to do it today. So again, welcome back, men, and I'm glad you are here. I'm glad you are with me on this journey of surrendering our lives to Jesus and using our strengths, our abilities, and our opportunities to honor God in everything that we do. With that being said, this past weekend, I had the opportunity to go and just spend some time in the woods, and the ultimate goal was to just look for deer antlers that had fallen off as they're falling off in this season, end of January, beginning of February. And I had never gone and just looked for deer sheds or deer antlers. And so I had the opportunity, and I took the opportunity to just go out. And one of the reasons I enjoy hunting is because I feel closer to God and more connected to God when I'm out in God's creation in the woods. And it was just an opportunity for me to get closer to God, as life has its way of really pulling us away from God, or just making us busy. There's a quote that I remember often is, if Satan can't make us bad, he's going to make us busy. And how true it is, because it doesn't take much, and all of a sudden we are just super busy with everything we got going on, and God unfortunately takes the back burner. So I wanted to just get some time away from everything and go walking through the woods. And as I was doing that, I had the opportunity to just listen to God and let him take the lead of my journey through the woods. And that's what this topic tonight is about. It's just following God's lead. And when we do that, life gets interesting and maybe a little crazy at times, but it seems like God has a way of making everything better through the craziness, through the uncertainty. So we just have to continue to trust God and allow him to lead and sometimes just take a step back and say, okay, God, which direction do you want me to go? And as I was walking through the woods, I was following a well trodden path where the deer like to go, because I was informed that's a good spot to look for deer sheds. And as I was going, there'd be times where there'd be two paths that looked pretty good, good options. So I would just take a moment and just ask God, which direction, what way do you want me to go, and just see what came to my heart, and just go. And there's going to be times, and there was times for me this past weekend that I had to ask multiple times, because as I'm looking around, I'm thinking, left is a good way or right is a good way. But I didn't want, what I was thinking to alter what God was telling me. So I would take a moment and ask multiple times to really feel what God was speaking to me into my heart at the time. And it was really just a good opportunity, a good practice for listening to God and following God's lead. Again, it was just a walk through the woods, but it was a a practice course, I would say, through what life should look like. So I've got a couple topics on following God's lead that I want to share with you, and just to help you and encourage you through your journey or on your journey as you are taking time to follow God's lead and to listen to what God is putting on your heart. So number one, when we follow God's lead, it might not always make sense at the time. There's been many times in my life where I'm trying to follow God's lead and do what God's will is, but it just seems like how is this going to happen, or how is everything going to work out? But when we just trust and have faith in God, it seems to work out. And it may feel like you're wandering through the woods, literally, or I was literally, but in life it might feel like you were just wandering through the woods, kind of like the Israelites were when God said, your fathers aren't gonna make it through the wilderness, but I will give the promised land to the children that did not rebel against me. And it kind of feels that way, but it always comes, God will always get us through. And as I was walking through the woods, there was a time where I came to a intersection where I could have went left, straight, right, and I listened to what God was telling me. I went straight and ended up making a big giant loop and coming back to that exact intersection. So I'd gone 3 of the ways. I only had one more way to go. And as I was going down a little bit farther from that intersection was a deadhead of a little fork buck that had died. So, I was literally probably maybe 50 to 75 feet from that, but I had to walk a big giant lap or big giant loop through the woods around a field to get to that point. And it doesn't make sense to me. God could have said, hey, hang a left and there's something right over there, but he didn't. I heard go straight, made a big loop, and then found what I was looking for. But I also found a lot of other cool things and saw a lot of other cool things as I was walking the big loop before I found the deadhead that I would not necessarily that I was looking for, but the deadhead that I found. So it might not always make sense to us at the time, but when we trust God and just listen to him and follow his will, we will get to a place where there is a reward that we are going after. So that's number one. When we follow God's lead, it might not always make sense at the time. Number two, immediate success is rare. So, like I said, I had to make a big giant loop when I was super, super close to some of the antlers that I found. But that doesn't mean that God is testing us or torturing us or any other thing if we don't have immediate success. chances are we are focusing on a worldly success that holds very little weight in eternity or in God's eyes. So we might not see the success we are hoping for right away. It may take some time. It may take walking for another hour to find what you want. But God has better rewards for us, and he has a bigger and better plan for us. So don't just look at the worldly rewards that we may or may not get from our journey or on our journey, because there's a lot of other good things that God has in store for us than maybe being famous or getting rich. Not that any of those are bad. That's just something that might come later. So don't get discouraged if you don't see immediate success or a immediate reward. God wants us to be successful. As a father, he wants us to be successful. And the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko, he talks about, why would any leader, whether it's a father or a business leader, make poor choices or lead us in a wrong direction if we are truly, or if the leader is truly for the person or the company, whatever it may be. It's the same way with God. He is for us. So he's not going to lead us in a direction that we shouldn't be going, or that's going to be negative for us. We just have to trust that the path that God puts in front of us is a path that will lead to eternal success. And I guarantee if we're on a path to eternal success, there will be worldly success along the way, because that is one way we are to honor and glorify God. We are to bear fruit and prosper. We are to grow and prosper. And that's just one of the many ways we can honor and glorify God. So if God didn't want us to honor and glorify him in that way, he wouldn't have told us that in the Bible, and he wouldn't let us be successful. We would all be poor, lowly, and just not have anything or any successes. But that's not the case. God wants us to be successful in this world and eternally. So as we follow God's lead, we have to remember that the worldly success might not be immediate. It might not even be what we hoped for, but there is eternal success as we trust and follow God's lead. So that was number 2. First one, again, as we follow God's lead, might not always make sense to us at the time. Number 2 is following God's lead won't lead, or might not lead, to immediate success. Number 3, when we follow God's lead, the goal is a relationship. It's not a destination. We are not on this earth, on this journey, just to simply get to a certain point. There's no, like our GPSs, there's not a red dot we're going towards. What we're going for is a relationship with God. That's what God wants. He wants a relationship with us. So we don't have to worry about the movement in our lives. We have to worry about the movement within our hearts and the direction our hearts are going. Are we going closer to God, or are we moving away from God? So I want you to consider that as you are going about your day the next couple days, and really consider, are you following God's lead? And what direction is your heart moving? Because you're either going towards God or you're going away from God. So that's one thing. And surrendering to God allows us oh, sorry. I was reading my notes and then my scribbling got in the way. So surrendering to God it's not about the job, salary, social status, anything like that. Surrendering it's about God, it's about Jesus, and it's about salvation. And to truly surrender, we have to really get out of our own way. We have to stop focusing on what we want, because it's not about me, it's not about us anymore. It's about God, it's about Jesus, and it's about salvation. So we have to remember that as we are moving on this journey, as we are walking through this wilderness and whatever season of life you are in, we need to remember that it's not about God, or it's not about us. It's about God and what God has in store for us and what He wants us to do. And there's a chance that you're going to be doing a 180 and going in a completely different direction than what you thought, or maybe what you went to school for. For me, I wouldn't say I'm a complete 180, at least not yet, but I'm definitely moving in a little different direction than what I went to school for, which was fitness management. And I wanted to coach and train people, and if I'm being honest, I enjoy it. I enjoy training, exercising, but at the same time, if I focus on that for too long or too much, I just get burnt out. So as a coach, or as someone who wants to coach people, I want to coach people more on the spiritual aspect of living, not so much the physical. Though the physical is important, because our hearts, our spirits live inside our physical body. So our physical body is very important, but there's a much greater focus that we need to be focusing on, and that is surrendering to God and living our life to God and for God. So, men, I just want to encourage you and strengthen you as you continue to surrender your life, that you remember to follow God's lead. It is not the direction that you're going, it's the direction that God wants you to go and what He has in store for you. So I just encourage you to follow God's lead, and remember that as we follow God's lead, it might not make sense at the time, but when you look back, things start to come together. Number 2, immediate success in this world might not happen, but eternal success is guaranteed when we follow God's lead. And that's what's important, eternal success. Number 3, the goal isn't a destination, it's a relationship with God. So men, make sure you are taking time to pause and to listen to God and to just follow His lead. And there's going to be times where it's going to be a bit challenging, because we are focused on the worldly things instead of the eternal things. But men, it's crucial that we take time and listen to God, and just move closer to God and closer to God's will for us, because there are a lot of good things coming for each one of us as we do that. And most importantly, the relationship with God, with Jesus, and the salvation that we have been given through the death of Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus. So, men, continue to follow God's lead. Take time to get away from all the man-made things and to just be with God and be in his word.